was the year 5 AH, a time when the nascent Muslim community in Medina was facing one of its greatest threats. The Quraysh of Mecca, along with their allies from various Arab tribes, were gathering with a single purpose: to annihilate the Muslims and wipe out the message of Islam once and for all. This alliance, driven by a deep-rooted animosity toward the growing power of Islam, posed a danger like no other. Medina was a small city, its walls not designed to withstand a large-scale siege. The Muslims were outnumbered and their resources were limited. The Quraysh's alliance boasted a massive army, far greater in strength and numbers. Their troops consisted of experienced warriors and horsemen who had proven their might in many battles. As the army of the Quraysh approached, tension filled the air. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, knew that this was a pivotal moment for the survival of the Muslim community. But despite the overwhelming odds, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was calm. He trusted in Allah, SWT, and sought guidance from the divine. In this time of uncertainty, it was Salman al-Farsi, a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who had come from Persia, who suggested a strategy that was unheard of among the Arabs: digging a trench. This tactic, used in ancient Persia to defend cities, was unknown to the Arabs of that time. It was unconventional, but the Prophet, peace be upon him, trusted Salman's wisdom. "Let us dig a trench," Salman proposed, "around the city to protect ourselves from the enemy. This will force them to abandon their attempts to breach the city by conventional means." The Prophet, peace be upon him, immediately endorsed the idea. The companions, despite their initial surprise, rallied to the cause. Each one knew that their survival depended on their unity and the wisdom of their leader. The trench was to stretch across Medina, forming an impassable barrier to the advancing Quraysh army. It required immense labor, and every Muslim, from the youngest to the oldest, participated in digging the trench. The Muslims worked tirelessly under the hot desert sun, their hands calloused, their bodies weary, but their faith unshaken. Among those working side by side, Imam Ali, alayhi salam, was a figure of strength and inspiration. His determination to work alongside the companions was unwavering. He was not just the lion of Islam in battle, but also a servant of the faith, showing his dedication in the hardest of tasks. His courage and fortitude encouraged others to keep going, even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them. As the trench slowly began to take shape, the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, could feel the weight of what was at stake. Their faith, unity, and determination would be tested to their limits. But they knew, deep down, that they were fighting for the truth, for Allah, SWT, and for the future of Islam. Finally, after days of grueling labor, the trench was complete. It stretched for miles, cutting off the path to Medina. It was a bold move, and the Muslims knew that their survival now depended on the trench. The Quraysh, when they saw the trench, were stunned. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered. They had no experience with such a defense. The Quraysh generals, led by Abu Sufyan, convened to devise a plan. Their pride had been wounded, and they could not fathom that a simple trench could stop their mighty army. They tried to find ways to bypass it, but the trench was too wide and deep. Meanwhile, the Muslims inside the city anxiously awaited what would come next. Their hearts were heavy, but their resolve was strong. They knew the Quraysh would not back down easily. They prepared for a siege, bracing for a long and difficult battle. It was then that Amr ibn Abd Wudd, one of the fiercest and most renowned warriors of the Quraysh, issued a challenge. His voice boomed across the battlefield as he called out to the Muslims. "Is there anyone among you who will come forward to face me in single combat? I will not accept anyone but your greatest warrior." This challenge was a call to test the courage of the Muslims, to see if they had a fighter who could face the might of Amr ibn Abd Wudd, a man known for his prowess in battle. His challenge was not just a test of strength, but a psychological one. The Quraysh were attempting to break the spirit of the Muslims, to show them that even their best warrior could not stand against the power of the Quraysh. The Muslims were silent. No one moved. The idea of facing Amr ibn Abd Wudd in one-on-one combat was daunting, even for the bravest among them. It was a moment of great fear and uncertainty. At that moment, a figure stepped forward from the ranks of the Muslims. Imam Ali, alayhi salam, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet, peace be upon him, rose to the challenge. His face was calm, and his eyes burned with the fire of faith. There was no hesitation in his heart, no fear in his soul. He knew that this was the moment where he would stand for Allah, SWT, for justice, and for the future of Islam. "I will go," he said, his voice steady and strong. The Prophet, peace be upon him, turned to him with pride, placing his hand on Imam Ali, alayhi salam, his shoulder and saying, "Go, and Allah, SWT, is with you." The companions looked on, their hearts swelling with admiration and respect. They knew that Imam Ali, alayhi salam, was not just a warrior, but a symbol of faith, strength, and courage. Imam Ali, alayhi salam, mounted his horse and rode out toward the battlefield. The ground shook beneath the heavy hooves of his steed as he approached Amr ibn Abd Wudd, who stood confidently awaiting his opponent. The two warriors faced each other in the midst of the vast battlefield, separated by the trench that had held back the Quraysh. The tension was palpable. The duel would not just decide the fate of two men, but the morale of the entire Muslim army. As they prepared for battle, Amr ibn Abd Wudd called out, mocking the Muslims, "Is this the best you have? Is there no one else among you who dares to face me?" But Imam Ali, alayhi salam, without a word, charged forward, his sword raised high. The duel began in an instant, each strike a testament to the might of the warriors. The clash of their swords was deafening as they fought with all their strength. Imam Ali, alayhi salam, moved with the grace and power of a lion, each strike calculated and deliberate. Amr ibn Abd Wudd fought fiercely, but he could not match the speed and precision of Imam Ali, alayhi salam. In one final, swift motion, Imam Ali, alayhi salam, disarmed Amr ibn Abd Wudd, sending his sword flying. With a single blow, Imam Ali, alayhi salam, struck down the mighty warrior, who fell to the ground, defeated. The battlefield fell silent as the Muslims looked on in awe. The mightiest warrior of the Quraysh had been defeated by Imam Ali, alayhi salam, and the morale of the Quraysh army plummeted. The defeat of Amr ibn Abd Wudd at the hands of Imam Ali, alayhi salam, was a moment of great triumph for the Muslims. But the victory was short-lived. The Quraysh, humiliated by their loss, regrouped and returned with a fierce resolve. Their morale was shattered, but their hatred for the Muslims burned even hotter. The next phase of the battle began as the Quraysh sought to break the trench and find a way into the heart of Medina. They brought siege equipment, and a few of their most daring warriors attempted to leap across the trench, but the Muslims had anticipated this. The trench, wide and deep, had made any such attack nearly impossible. The Quraysh found themselves frustrated, unable to breach the defense that the Muslims had so cleverly devised. The trench was a physical and psychological barrier that held them back. As the days passed, the Quraysh began to feel the weight of their failure. The siege was not working, and their resources were dwindling. As the days wore on, the trench became the symbol of the Muslims' resilience. Despite being outnumbered and surrounded by a powerful enemy, they held firm. Imam Ali, alayhi salam, ever vigilant, stood watch alongside the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the companions, ready for any potential attack. His presence was a source of immense strength for the Muslims, and his actions on the battlefield inspired courage and faith in every heart. But even as they stood strong, the Muslims were not immune to the psychological toll of the siege. The Quraysh's forces were vast, and the Muslim camp was constantly under threat. At times, the Muslim army would be forced to retreat behind the trench to regroup and prepare for the next wave of attacks. Yet, in the midst of this hardship, Imam Ali, alayhi salam, remained a beacon of hope. His bravery, his unwavering faith in Allah, SWT, and his devotion to the Prophet, peace be upon him, were unmatched. His role in protecting Medina was not just one of physical defense, but also of spiritual fortitude. Imam Ali, alayhi salam, was the embodiment of strength in the face of adversity, a reminder to the Muslims that victory would come only through faith, unity, and reliance on Allah. The siege continued for days, and the Quraysh seemed determined to press on. But then, as if answering the prayers of the Muslims, a storm appeared unexpectedly. Dark clouds gathered above the battlefield, and a fierce wind began to blow, throwing dust and debris into the faces of the Quraysh soldiers. The storm was so powerful that it disrupted their movements and caused chaos within their ranks. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and his companions saw this as a sign from Allah, a divine intervention to protect the Muslim community. The wind, which had previously been calm, now raged against the Quraysh, and their plans for a siege were severely hampered. The Quraysh, already demoralized from their losses and frustrated by their inability to breach the trench, began to lose hope. It was at this moment that the Prophet, peace be upon him, in consultation with his companions, made a strategic decision to send an envoy to the Quraysh to negotiate peace. The Muslims knew that they could not afford to be complacent, and they needed to secure their position before the storm subsided. The Muslim delegation, led by Uthman ibn Affan, went to the Quraysh camp to seek terms of peace. The Prophet, peace be upon him, had long desired peace and unity, and this opportunity was not to be missed. The negotiation was tense, with both sides aware of the immense stakes. The Quraysh, their forces broken by the storm and their morale shattered by their inability to defeat the Muslims, began to recognize the futility of continuing the siege. Ultimately, the Quraysh agreed to a truce, and the siege of Medina came to an end. The trench had served its purpose, and the Muslims had held firm in the face of overwhelming odds. The battle, though not a direct confrontation in the traditional sense, had been a victory for the Muslims. The Quraysh, though not completely defeated, had been forced to retreat and reconsider their approach to the Muslims. As the Quraysh army withdrew from the battlefield, the Muslims were left with a deep sense of gratitude and reflection. The Battle of Khandaq was not a victory won by swords and spears alone. It was a victory earned through patience, faith, and unity. The trench had symbolized the Muslims' resilience, and Imam Ali, alayhi salam, had been the embodiment of that resilience throughout the siege. The Muslims, though physically exhausted, were spiritually uplifted. The victory was a clear sign that Allah had been with them, guiding them through the storm. It was a reminder that the battle for truth was not always won on the battlefield, but in the hearts of the faithful. The Prophet, peace be upon him, expressed his gratitude to the companions, especially Imam Ali, alayhi salam, for their courage and sacrifices. The victory was a turning point in the history of Islam, marking the beginning of a new era of strength and resolve for the Muslim community. The Battle of Khandaq taught the Muslims several important lessons. First and foremost, it demonstrated that true victory comes not through numbers or brute force, but through faith, patience, and the help of Allah. The trench, a simple but brilliant idea, showed that strategy and intellect could overcome even the most overwhelming forces. Secondly, the battle highlighted the importance of leadership. Imam Ali, alayhi salam, his unwavering dedication to the cause of Islam and his courage in the face of danger inspired those around him. He was not only a warrior, but a symbol of faith and devotion. His actions during the battle were a reminder to all Muslims that the struggle for Islam was one of both spiritual and physical endurance. Finally, the battle demonstrated the importance of unity. Despite the challenges they faced, the Muslims stood together, united in their faith and purpose. Their strength lay not in individual glory, but in their collective resolve to protect the message of Islam.